assembly like this before. It is not new in terms of what our ELCA synods have done. The good news about electing a bishop this way is that by way of an online assembly is that it can be done. So far, 6 synods have elected bishops in this manner: Western North Dakota, Eastern North Dakota, Northeastern Minnesota, South Carolina, Southeastern Iowa, and the South Central Synod of Wisconsin. So by my calculations, we will be the 7th synod to elect a bishop in this way. The challenge to an online format that you'll find as you go through this training session today is that are the complexities of an ecclesiastical ballot, but that's on my area of expertise. Somebody else will explain that to you. But one of the good things too that we have is that ELCA Secretary Sue Rothmeyer, who has presided over 4 of these 6 assemblies, will be with us, and she has already gained that expertise, and she'll be helpful in guiding us along on the day of the assemblies. Let us begin with a word of prayer, and then I'm going to turn it over to the people who will lead this training session. So let us pray. Eternal God, amid all the turmoil and the changes of the world, your love is steadfast and your strength never fails. In this time of pandemic, natural disasters, racial strife, and other dangers and trouble, be to us a sure guardian and rock of defense. Guide the leaders of our nation with your wisdom, comfort those in distress, and grant us courage and hope to face the future. As we prepare for this assembly, guide our hearts by your Holy Spirit and give us the wisdom to carry out your will for this assembly and for the mission of this synod. Be with us now as we familiarize ourselves with the technology that you have provided us, and may everything we say and do in this meeting be to your glory. We ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, our Savior and Lord. Amen.
Amen. Okay. Thank you, Bishop. Let me add my welcome. And just briefly, what we're doing today is a sort of a quick run through of a little bit more about the Zoom meetings, and also some review of what's going on with the, excuse me, I'm getting some side questions that we're having some other issues. No, they've apparently been resolved. This is, as the bishop said, a new experience for us. It's one which some of the other synods have gone through. It's going to be different. There are going to be some glitches as we start. We hope as we go through today that we can, at least with this subgroup of what is now 100 people, get some familiarity both with Zoom and a little later on with the Turning Technologies app that we are going to be using for voting. So with that as background, and a couple of also side notes, that there are more videos and instruction sheets available on the Synod Assembly website. You should have received an email this morning reminding you about that availability. And I would encourage you, as you have questions, to continue to go and look at that material. At this time, you have obviously been able to log in, and I see we're getting a little screen share that I would request get taken down. Thank you. So you're here and you're that far. I would like at this time to review a couple of things that are on this screen. And to that end, I believe that Marilyn Matavia is going to share her screen of the Zoom call as she is looking at it. And once we get that up, we'll start to go through. Okay. Marilyn, can you get the Zoom call screen up instead of the turning screen, please?
That's trying to do that here. Let's see.
Okay. Like I said, it's our first time through. There are going to be some glitches. We've got more
Sure.
practice going on.
I'm not really sure why it won't show me yours, but the features are on the title bar up here in the meantime, so I can point to those.
Well, then let's go with that. All right. So as you look at this screen, you can see that, well, first of all, when you joined the meeting, you were either asked to indicate how you wanted to identify yourself, or if you already had an account, you were logged in under that name, which appears both in your participant window and in the supplemental windows that we will be discussing later. Since this is a legal meeting of the Synod, we request that in the actual meeting, the Zoom display name be the name under which you are registered. So you may need to change that. This will be a significant help to the Credentials Committee during the meeting and will prevent spending their time and wasting some of yours trying to figure out who is, the Incredible Hulk or a particular phone number or however you may have logged in. I know I'm not intentionally picking you on Gail, but I know this has happened before. Gail clearly uses Zoom with her grandchildren. So sometimes we see Nana instead of Gail Adamic. So let's go through a little later on how to change that if we come into it. Obviously, if you get the request, how do you want to be named during your login, you can change it there. But we'll show you here a little bit later how to change it. One of the easiest ways actually is if your picture is displayed, you can right click on it and select the rename option from the menu. If you look up at the top of your screen, you should see a couple of little icons and or some text that either gives you either gives you speaker view with an icon. I'm sorry, I was getting some feedback there. I'll go back. Okay. Okay, Marilyn, up at the top of your screen, there should be a swap shared screen with video icon in the upper right corner.
Okay.
There should be in the upper right corner for people who are getting the Turning Tech page.
Oh, I can turn that page off.
Yeah, you should be able, okay. Okay,
Let me close some other stuff.
Marilyn, stop sharing your screen. I'm going to take it over and I will move to sharing mine and we'll adjust that in a minute. Okay. like I said, we have some glitches. Why am I not getting this? All right, we're going to play it by ear. We'll fix that later. Oh, okay. Sonny, you're screen sharing. Are you moving this into a Zoom screen? I hope.
I'm not exactly sure why. It's showing that it should have my entire monitor showing, which has everybody in little squares.
It's showing your monitor. You have to select to show the Zoom panel. Okay, stop the screen share. We're going to try to talk you through this. Sorry, this is going to be a little slower. We'll try again tomorrow. All right. Now then, depending on your device, these things may be placed a little bit differently. But on most of your screens, if you look up in the section at the top toward the right, there is either an icon that identifies speaker view with a table that is supposed to represent 3 heads behind it. If you are looking at the view of everybody, that option is up there. If you click on that icon, it will change to highlight the speaker, and the description will change to gallery view or to a little grid, which is the list of all the people that are available. And when you are in speaker view, everybody's little display of their name and so forth will be across the top in a scrollable link. If you are going to be also streaming the live stream during the assembly, it doesn't make much difference which screen you display at this point. But if you are not going to be watching the live stream, we would suggest that you move this into speaker view, simply because that way you can get a better view of what's happening at the assembly rather than the smaller icons of everyone. Of course, depending on the size of your screen, you will get a different number of icons on each page, and you can scroll across those pages to be able to see everyone. At the bottom of the screen, I do want to note to you that there are several icons available. Those include mute and start or stop video. Those control what other people can see and also what other people can hear. We do have the ability to override that. Because of some feedback, we did have to override the mute right now. So except for me, I believe everybody is muted. We will open that up again, but if we continue to have, if we do have problems on that, particularly during assembly, we're going to have to mute everybody unless we can control the feedback issues, or unless you are specifically recognized to speak. There is also down there a start or stop video. The credentials committee will no doubt prefer that there be some information on you so that they can verify you. But again, we can deal with that. If you choose not to show your video, that will work unless we get into problems. The two things down there that I particularly do want to highlight are the little icon that has a couple of heads and a number next to it, which is participant. That shows the number of people on the call, but perhaps more importantly, if you click on it once, it'll open up a window at the side of your screen that shows a list of all of the people that are participating in the video and can be screened. That also has an assortment of little icons that also indicate who's muted, who's not, and so forth. Those probably are not overly important, but for your info, they are there. Clicking or unclicking that icon will reveal or hide the participant screen. Next to that is another icon, which is a little bubble of a talking bubble, and is marked chat. This one can become particularly important because if you open up the chat window, there is a option to establish chats with everyone or privately to individual people. I'm not going to go through the instructions right now, but if you look at the video or the instructions on how to gain recognition, that will walk you through the way of doing this and how to ask to be recognized during the assembly meeting. At this point, I'm going to ask that if you have any questions about these functions, that you do go to the videos and the instruction sheets that are on the Synod website and on the Synod YouTube channel. If we have time at the end, we can come back during our question and answer period and discuss those issues here. If you do have questions about this that you want to bring up, if you open that chat window and chat to everyone, we are monitoring that window and will try to either refer you to the process and where the videos are, or to answer those questions as we have time. At this point, this does end our brief review of the Zoom screen layout and the use of the view, participant, and chat icons. At this time, we are going to turn our attention to the voting method that we will be using. As a voting member, you should have received information, including passwords in an email, on how to log in to the Turning Technologies website or to download the app for voting. I hope you've all done so already, so that you can now log in to participate in some practice voting. If you have not done that, please do so before Friday, because you will need it soon after we open the assembly. At this time, I'm going to turn the narration over to Tim, who is our Turning Technologies guru, and ask him to narrate the next section. Tim?
All right, now I'm unmuted. You can hear me. Hello, and welcome to the Turning Point Voting Tryout session. I hope that you have already signed into the Turning Point website or application and have figured out how you'll connect with voting during the assembly. If you haven't signed in yet, let's do that now. When you log in to the Turning Point app, you will need to do so using the email address and password provided to you by the Synod Assembly email you received earlier. Please sign in now by opening a web browser and going to ttpoll.com. You can do so using your phone, tablet, laptop, or desktop. I encourage you to avoid using the search box and simply type ttpoll.com in the address bar at the top of your browser. Once logged in, you will see a screen that asks you to enter a session ID. The session ID will be different for each of the bishop ballots, for the general ballot, and for any other motions that may occur at various points in the meeting. The particular session ID to be used will be announced just prior to each vote and shown on the screen of your Zoom and live stream feed. This added step of security combines with the email registration and password to both prove your identity and to give evidence that you were attending the meeting at the time of the vote, thus meeting the conditions for a legal meeting. The session ID for all of the test votes in this series is shown in your Zoom shared screen now. It is 809227. Please enter it now into the session code box of your Turning Point app. Ignore the number I'm typing in on the screen. It was created when there was a different session code listed. After you enter the session ID, you will see either a polling closed message or something like what you see next, which is the slide showing the session ID, which is now being displayed in both the Zoom window and your voting application. Another possibility is that you will see a slide like this, a static logo slide used as a placeholder in the voting software. It will show on your screen when the voting application is preparing to do a vote. This, the session ID slide, or the polling closed are the three options that you might see when logged into your voting session. If you see this static symbol, Synod Assembly screen, the polling closed, or the identification for the session ID, don't worry, you're connected and should remain connected until voting is officially opened. Please be ready to vote when the ballot is declared open. Let's see what a simple voting screen looks like. We'll open the first vote now. Most votes taken at this assembly are fairly simple, with limited choices. Our first test vote is a simple multiple choice selection. You will notice that the topic appears at the top of the screen. Possible answers appear down the left column, and buttons corresponding to those options appear in the lower portion of the voting application. You can see that here on my phone as it shows on my voting app. When you touch the buttons at the bottom, they will light up. This is an indication that you selected that choice. If you decide that you wanted to make a different selection, simply touch the button of your desired choice. You can change the response as long as polling remains open. Once polling closes, that choice is considered final. The box will then show the selection as entered. During the real assembly, depending on what is being voted on and when, we will either receive reports of the vote after they have been verified, or those results will be transferred for counting and validation. In this case, let's see the result of our test vote. I've closed the polling session, and now I bring up the results. You will see the results of the vote shown on your Zoom and or your live stream video feed. The results, however, will not show directly on your voting application. It will only show what your answer was. It may also show polling closed depending on what I'm doing in the application software. If I exit out of it, polling will show as closed. All right, let's take a step back and see what that looked like if we were using a desktop app in a web browser. As you can see, the question is listed at the top of the viewing page, and the options listed down the left side. Buttons corresponding to those answers are at the bottom of the app window or web application. When you touch the button at the bottom, they will light up. This is an indication that you selected that choice. If you decide that you wanted to make a different selection, simply make your choice and touch the button of your desired selection. You can change your response as long as polling remains open. I think I want to go back to 1. Once polling closes, that choice is considered final. The box will then show the selection as entered. As you can see at the bottom, I selected 1. In between votes, you may again see a slide like this, a static logo slide used as a placeholder in the voting software. It will show on your screen when the voting application is preparing to do a vote. In between, if you end up seeing this screen, either the voting session has ended and you will await a new session ID, or you were kicked from the session and need to re-enter the session ID. If you attempt to log into the voting application on your web browser or a different device while you were previously logged in on your phone, for example, you will be kicked from the previously logged in device. This is a special feature to assure only one vote is submitted per registered voting party. It's a good idea to write down the session ID when they appear. So if that screen disappears, you will at least have the most recent session ID to try and use. If a session has ended and no voting is happening, this screen will most likely be what you see. Let's try this again, but without all the other stuff in the mix. Here's another topic to vote on. Simple with limited choices. The question is listed at the top of the screen and the choices are listed in numerical order. Buttons corresponding to those options appear in the lower portion of the screen. I will move this out of the way so you don't have to see that. When you touch the buttons at the bottom, they will light up. This is an indication that you have selected that choice. If you decide that you wanted to make a different selection, simply touch the button of your desired choice. This can be done, and you can continue to change your response as long as polling remains open. Once polling closes, that choice is considered final. The box will then show the selection as entered. Let's see the results of that vote. We only had 57 people try that vote. I was hoping that we'd get more. Do you think we can try that one more time? We will reset this vote. Hold on a second. The poll will show closed. And you will see me reset the slide. You won't get to see this in a normal session. Hold on. Turning point. Reset the slide. And now we'll bring this back up. We'll try this vote one more time. So take your time, but vote. Select one of the 4 options at the bottom of your application screen. Do so now. We're slowly ticking up. We have 60 responses now. I know we should get at least 70 or 80 to show that we have a good percentage of folks understanding this process. Then we'll move on to the next level of questions that will talk about a little bit more technical versions of testing votes that we'll have during the Synod Assembly. All right, you have 15 seconds to complete your vote. All right, polling is closed. Now what we'll do is we'll come back and we'll see the results of that vote. A lot of people say that it's easy peasy. That's a good thing to see. We do have a few people that are saying, I am lost, but hey, you voted, so you're not as lost as you think. We're on a step closer to making this easy for you. I'm glad we did another one. Glad that's an answer there. And I think I got this. So I'd say a good portion of the folks that are participating today have a good grasp of it. Hopefully by the time we get to the Synod Assembly, you'll have a better grasp of how this all works. Now we're moving to a little bit more difficult of a test question now. All right. In between voting stages, I gotta resize this so I can read my writing. All right, in between voting stages, and I'm doing this wrong. All right, in between voting stages, the screen will either return to a static logo screen for the assembly, show the session ID of an incoming session, or it could show polling closed. Don't worry, you don't have to take any steps to receive the next polling question. Because of the requirements of the voting process for bishop, there are a couple more complex votes that will be required. We're now going to review the process for the second ballot for bishop. The general layout will remain the same, with the question or item to be voted upon appearing at the top of the screen, and instead of buttons appearing showing multiple choice options, a text box will appear at the bottom. This text box will be where you enter your choice. Another button appears when this text box is present, a little airplane, which is the button you will use to send your vote to be counted. There will not be a list of possible answers on the screen of your voting app or browser, as the list of options will be emailed to you during the assembly. You will need to review those options and make your choice prior to the polling being opened. This is because there is certainly going to be many names displayed, and they won't be able to fit all on one screen. So when you get that email, review it, select the people that you are interested in voting for, and make certain you mark down the number that is to the left of that person's name. Please be sure to find their correct number and write it down. The numbers that will be in that email to the right of the name are the numbers of votes that a person received on the first ballot. Entering any of those numbers will almost assuredly end up with you voting for someone you did not intend to, or having your vote being voided and considered illegal. I've put up on the screen a list for your review. Understand this list is there only for this practice session. You will not see the options unless you read your email that contains those materials. On a side note, if you are viewing this list on your phone or a small touchscreen device, to make it easier to view, you may touch your screen with 2 fingers. If you expand those fingers, you zoom in on the screen, and then you can move it around to see closer what you're viewing. If you put the 2 fingers on your screen and pinch them together, it returns it to the small size of the screen. This technique will help you to get a better view of the contents of your screen. All right, I'm going to now open this poll for voting. I want you to mark down the number that you want to vote. Pick the number that you want to vote based on whatever you're feeling, whatever you're thinking. Don't worry about anything because it's a number attached to a word. All right, has everybody written down a number and ready to vote? This would be very similar to you picking that number off that email. Now, when the leader of the voting process says that polling is open, a screen similar to this, but without the rank and responses listed, will appear on your app. That is when you start to vote. That box at the bottom is where you'll enter the 2-digit or numeric code that is listed to the left of your candidate that you want to vote for. After you've entered the number into the response box, click the airplane to submit your vote. Previously, we talked about being able to change your vote. This is possible here as well. Once you've submitted your vote, you can then click on that box again, enter a different number, and then hit the submit button, which is the paper airplane at the side, and submit another answer. Now be aware that once polling is closed, you'll no longer be able to change your vote. So vote early, but don't plan on waiting until the last second of the voting process to send that vote off. You may actually end up voting for the previous person that you had listed. So the instructor that is running the polling will give you an indication of how much time you have left to complete your vote. Don't wait too long. Put in your number and click submit. Since polling is open, I'll give you a little more time to vote before I declare voting closed. Okay, we are going to close polling now. We didn't validate these entries. The committee behind me wasn't telling me if this was something that we could report verbally. So in general, when you have this kind of screen come up on your voting app, you're not going to see results projected to the Zoom app or the live stream. They'll be taken back and reviewed by the committee to validate and confirm that the votes are correct. Let's take a look at this vote that we'll just basically be able to take a look at because of the fact that we have it available to us. All right, so we have 18 people selecting the first ranking vote is number 18. I can't remember what those things are, so I don't know who really, I think 18, I don't even know if it was a number, to tell you the truth. But we have, this is the kind of data that we'll be receiving, and we'll be able to tabulate it and send it to the voting people who will be able to better keep up. As you can see, only the top 6 answers were listed. We had 58 voters, and we can look at the other pages, but because we can't put it all on one screen, you won't ever see this data presented in the assembly. All right, the most complex issue in dealing with voting will be the first ballot for bishop, the Ecclesiastical Ballot. Since the name of any person who is in good standing on the ELCA roster of ministers of word and sacrament is eligible to be nominated on this ecclesiastical ballot, the bishop election committee will need to receive those names and then review and verify the votes. To do this in the most efficient way, and thus to be able to move on to the second ballot, please follow the instructions as given at the assembly exactly. The ballot will consist of typing an answer into the response box so that the information can be downloaded into a spreadsheet, sorted and counted. We are asking that it be entered in a very precise manner. For the actual vote, there will be 3 separate fields: last name, followed by a comma, first name, followed by a comma, and a description of their current call or status. Each of those fields must be separated by a comma and should be entered in that precise order. This will allow the received data to be downloaded into a spreadsheet that can be quickly sorted and totaled to report the results. This is important because following these directions exactly will help keep the tight schedule that we have planned during the Friday afternoon assembly. The results of the second ballot will be reported before the end of business on Friday. We're going to move to a couple of test votes using the 3 field answers. The first of these is now shown on the screen. Follow the instructions on the screen and fill in the text box with your choice of response. I'll give you some time to make your choice.
Tim,
Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but in chat, we're getting a number of people who say that they cannot see the response boxes to cast their vote. I think that may be an issue that on some devices, you can't shrink by squeezing fingers. You have to use 1 or 2 fingers to scroll to the response section. Can you comment on that?
Well, I can't comment confidently on that because I basically have used iPhones and Android phones along with tablets as well that allow the pinching and the expanding of the fingers to zoom to different parts of the screen. I'm hoping that it isn't a matter of one of the reasons I had logged in myself so I could see what people were seeing, but I probably should have logged in with a few other devices as well. I don't have an answer for that. I think that might be something we want to talk to Rianne about.
Okay, then I think the best answer that we can suggest for those people is please contact our help desk so that they can make a note of it and try to figure out what's going on. If you are not aware how to do that, when Tim finishes, we'll be turning this over to Karen Kaufman, who will explain how to get in contact with the help desk. And Tim, back to you.
All righty. At this point, we were waiting for folks to put into that box their answer. And I'll just remind you, the first answer is flavor, followed by a comma. And then you'll enter a date, followed by a comma. And then you'll enter a season, and then submit. So 2 commas, 3 entries, and a submission. I'm going to give us a few more moments to let people make their decision. I know typing some of these things in can be difficult. I'm also certain that it's going to take a little bit of extra time on this process because some names are longer than others. Some calls are described in longer ways than others. So this process may have an elongated time period for entering your answer. Now, don't wait until the last second to do that. Start entering your answer immediately once you have that opportunity. Do your thinking before the vote starts, have it written down how you want to enter it, and then simply type it into the box and hit send. Verify that you have the name spelled correctly. Last name first, first name second, and then the call. In this circumstance, it's flavor, date, and season. Now, just to make you aware, the screen is not going to show very much information as we have a very limited area of presentation space to show on the screen, and the app doesn't allow a whole ton of information to be displayed because of conflicting monitors and issues like that. So this will all be saved to a database, handed to an election committee that will then sort it and calculate it and count it at an off-site or another location prior to reporting the results. All right, we're going to close the voting in 15 seconds. Okay, I've submitted my response and now I'm closing polling. Since we are doing this test thing, let's just see what it ends up coming back as. Oh, did I press the wrong button? There it is. We have a lot of butter pecans. Wow, butter pecan seems to be liked. Okay. I don't know exactly. There's a C, CC, and then a few more commas. And I think that's a Power Ranger emoji listed there as number 6. Interesting. I don't know exactly what that means, but maybe John does. Okay. Let's see if I missed anything. So the real vote information needs to be reviewed and reformatted for posting. That's all I have to say about that. Moving on to the next screen, we're going to do this test one more time. It seems to have gone well, so let's try another one with the actual name fields. This one requires you to think back and choose from all the information you have available. For this question, it is all in your head. So make sure and fill in the text box following the directions listed on the screen. Take your time, think about your choice, pray about it, enter in your answer. I'll give you a few more minutes to enter and submit your responses. At some point, the individual leading the voting process will indicate that you only have a few minutes or a few moments left to enter into your response and submit it. Please be sure to be specific in your responses and verify that you have typed everything accurately before submitting. I am sure that your elementary teacher wants you to know how to spell their last name correctly. Please do so. Same thing with their first name, which might be Mrs. I don't know. All right, you have 15 seconds left. Please finalize your choice and submit your vote. Seeing that I didn't give enough time to the vote, I'm gonna leave the voting open just for a little bit longer. All right, 15 seconds until we close the polling. All right, polling is now closed. Give the software a minute to tabulate all the data. And now we will return. We will show you what the results of it were. Now on your Zoom window, you can see the number 1 response was Abby Adams. I guess there was probably more than just one response to that because we have a top vote for that. It's excellent. I see Mrs. in there as the first name. Excellent. That's what I expected. I don't see the third answer, mainly because we don't have room, that the software wouldn't allow me to open that up larger to show more information. But be assured, your submission was completely received and entered into a database that will be calculated, sorted, and counted as you may want it to be. In the real bishop's ballot, the key will be whether the bishop election committee can uniquely identify an eligible person on the ELCA roster from the combination of the last name, first name, and call information that you enter. So please make sure that you have that as accurate as possible and follow the instructions on Friday very carefully. One last polling for you today. Don't be bashful. We would rather know exactly how you feel now and address it than find out that you were not able to be ready to participate in the assembly. So let's have fun with this one. Hopefully we get a good response. All right, voting is now open. Please select your answer as one of the boxes at the bottom of the screen. If you want to change that answer, you can select a different answer. It will be considered final when polling is closed. You can change that vote all the way up until we close polling. As I said before, when whoever's running these votes will tell you at some point how much time you have left. For example, 15 seconds until we close the poll. All right, polling is now closed. Let's see what the results are. This one will show in your app. This is the only one that will show in your app because I allowed it to show it in the app. Understand that during the regular voting process, you will not see the results of any of these voting situations appear in the app itself, mainly because we wouldn't be able to control the time frame that that information could be revealed. So as the election committees verify the actual voting outcome, that is when you will see it either via your Zoom view or your live stream view. Okay, this ends our brief review of the Turning Technologies voting application and the types of votes that we will be holding. Are there any general questions at this time? Again, please enter them into the chat box to everyone, and we'll get to them. I guess John could ask them, if he sees a lot of them, I'll see what I can do to answer them.
Tim, we've been monitoring it, and I think most of the questions that have been raised in chat have been answered that were specific. The one thing that I think we probably should comment on is that I believe the way you did have those results screens set up, as someone noted, and it's far enough back, I've lost track to who to credit it to. The results were listed alphabetically, not according to frequency for the multiple choice questions. So that will not happen in the real assembly. That's why, as Tim stated, some of the more complex votes are being downloaded into spreadsheets so that mostly the Bishop Election Committee for those, because it's the first two ballots for Bishop really, can be manually reviewed before they are displayed and assured that they are in the proper order.
Yes, and those slides will be created manually outside of the software the software couldn't do it and do all this stuff that the committee wants to have happen to the actual answers.
Yeah, and also, again, my apologies to whoever asked that first, but I lost you in the scroll down in chat. Deacon Anderson did raise the why are there only 6 displayed, and again, that's a screen size issue, which again is why, as Tim said, those things are going to occur in a different format where we have more choices than that.
Yeah, we will, as participants in the Synod Assembly, the actual results of any of these votes have to be approved by the committee that is overseeing them before they get displayed. And what you see is what has been reviewed and verified, and it'll be presented in a way that is different than what this software could do for us. We were just looking at what the software would provide if that's what we were using. It's not what we're using to display the vote results.
Now, the other question that's been coming up in chat is, should I use 1 device, 2 devices, browsers, which browser? I would refer you on that to one of the videos that did some questions about technology issues.
Yeah, I would like to add, I'd like to throw something in about that specific answer. If you have the opportunity to watch the live stream separately from using any other application, I'd encourage you to do that. That'll give you an overall view of what's going on in the Synod Assembly, as well as what if you're using one device to do both Zoom and the voting, you'll still have something to view on the screen that is the live stream broadcast. Now understand, the live stream broadcast will be shared in the Zoom app. So you'll see what you would have seen if you were on the Zoom app if you have the live stream showing outside. So having a second device specifically for the live stream is a good method. Yeah. The second thing I'd like to recommend is, if you could, and I know technology, a lot of people don't have enough devices to make this happen, but if you could project your live stream onto one item, have a tablet that is your Zoom app, and then use your phone for the voting, that is the ultimate setup that will help you be able to do all the voting, have all the Zoom app aspects, and the live stream all on separate screens. I think that's the best case scenario.
Again, Tim, I think if they watch Jane's video, that covers some of those issues. And since that is on video, they can rerun it and catch any details that they might want to follow through on.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this point. I hope.
Okay. Well, if we're done with that for the moment, again, as I said before, if you have specific questions, contact the help desk for particular assistance. Do review the videos and the instruction sheets to answer some of the other questions, which also I think there are some references in that video on some of the issues that have come up about viewing things in groups at congregational settings. There's some references in those videos to that. At this point in time, then, perhaps we need to move to questions about how do you get more help, both now and during the assembly. So at this point, I'm going to recognize Karen Kaufman, who's going to talk about some of that. Karen?
Thank you. Well, thanks to the Synod Assembly Planning Team, through this meeting and through the various videos, you should be well prepared for participating in the Synod Assembly. And as John has mentioned, there's videos. If you're still experiencing a problem, email assembly neos-elca.org. Indicate what you're struggling with, and then the person who is most appropriate for answering that question will be in touch with you. We have several people who are monitoring that email. During the assembly, or beginning at noon, you will be able to call the Synod Assembly office at 330-929-9022 to get assistance. For example, if you have a power or internet outage, which did happen during the Western North Dakota Synod Assembly, please call or text us. Let us know what area you're from, and also if how wide that outage is, if you happen to know it. Also, if you're with a group and there's like 4 of you, you know, not every one of you needs to report that. Just one person say, you know, I'm pastor and so, we have 3 individuals here, and we have had a tree come down and losing power. So you can call or text us with that information. An additional tip that I would like to give to you is that you probably have noticed that, you know, by clicking on that email Zoom link, that was the easiest way to connect via Zoom. But in that email, you will notice that there was a meeting code and password. I would suggest you type that or write that down and keep that handy. That way, if you have a situation where the internet has a bit of a glitch and you lose just your internet for 15 seconds, rather than having to go back through your emails and find that link, if you just go to zoom.us or your Zoom app and type in the meeting code and password, you'll be joined back in very quickly. So the only other thing I want to share with you is the information about the email address, the phone number, and then the text number. And that is 234-738-1567. We will have people here on Friday and Saturday that will be answering the phones. We do have 4 phone lines, but you still may need to be patient as we work through those. And then we also are offering that text option where you can leave a message, please call, or say we have a power outage at, Ashland, Ohio, whatever. So if at the conclusion of this meeting, you still have questions, you can look at the videos, email assembly@neos-elca.org, or participate in tomorrow evening's event for a second time. Any questions?
I'm not seeing anything new entered in the chat box. I'll wait a minute to see if there is anything. Not seeing anything, so thank you, Karen. All right, we do have some time, and again, we've talked about using the chat box, and many of you clearly have been able to do that. If there are any other questions or answers at this point, we can attempt to answer those. Otherwise, I thank you all for your participation, and we will see you on Friday. If you have any other questions, please email assembly or go from there.